Everything said on the Couplings Fire podcast are our opinions, and in no way represent the opinions and values of any agency we are associated with.
Hey, this is the Couplings Fire Podcast.
Here's a couple of things you might need to know, or maybe you just forgot.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Taylor.
We're married.
And we're both firefighters.
Join us as we talk anything and everything fire-related.
Based out of small town, rural Nebraska, we bring our unique challenges and solutions to the table every episode.
Our goal? To better the rural volunteer firefighting community, one person at a time.
Let's get on to the episode. I wasn't prepared for that.
You're welcome. Hey guys, welcome back.
Hey, I'm so surprised you guys are actually still listening to us, because
I think you say that every time.
I do say that every time, but you know what? I'm still surprised.
Well, we hope you guys are doing good tonight, or today, or whenever you're happening to be listening to this. It's night for us here, so.
Yeah.
I think we're going to cover some long call operations tonight. Some things to think about, hopefully some little nuggets for you. It might be a shorter one, but I've said that before and it turned out to be a longer one, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, they're going to be able to see how long the podcast is before they start listening to it. So they're going to see if we lied or not.
Well, good luck.
Good luck.
All right.
I am primed with my Bud Light Lime. Chris is primed with his Pepsi, and we're ready to go.
We're ready to roll. Roll it.
Roll
That
it,
was
roll
off.
it, roll. Okay.
That's off another one.
What?
Roll it.
Roll it?
That is off of another podcast. Who is that?
I don't know.
Jump Seat Radio.
I haven't listened to them for a while.
Yeah, that's in his intro. Roll it. Let's hear that federal cue.
No, I haven't listened to them for a while.
Yeah. Another good podcast for you guys. If you haven't listened to that one, Jump Seat Radio is a good one. So.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, yeah, we're going to kind of cover some long call operations, some little things that it seems like here in the last few years we've had to deal with a few long calls. So we picked a couple of them out, different considerations to have with them, and we'll kind of go through them and hopefully give you some guys some nuggets to think about, and I don't know, maybe some stories, who knows. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so we got 3 different fires for you guys that we're kind of putting with these things that are kind of getting us thinking. So we have, actually, if you guys listened to the last podcast about my last big grass fire, I'm still excited about that.
Your last big grass fire? Your first big
My first big grass fire, but the last one I went on, the last podcast, whatever. Anyways, the big grass fire. So we have that one, which was about 7-ish to 8-ish hours, is what we're putting that time frame. Then we have another one we did a few years ago, which was.
I forget to mention that was out of that fire like that whole night and the whole next day.
Yeah, they were out for a while for that one.
Yeah, even after we left. Anyway,
Yeah.
Continue.
Anyways, so then the second one we're gonna kind of reference to is what we call our Converse fires on Converse Street here in town. And
It's
it was
a structure fire.
It was the structure fire. We approximate that to about 12 hours on that fire. And then the last one we're going to put is going to be very, very, what's the word I want to look for? High risk, low frequency for sure. What's going on?
Those were, sorry, Facebook, sorry.
Oh, okay. You're surfing Facebook in the middle of a podcast?
It's the beginning of the podcast.
Okay. I'm talking so he doesn't have to pay attention, apparently. It's
It
basically...
was a fire-related video.
Okay, can you share with the class?
Maybe.
Maybe. What was it?
Crazy, like...
It's not even fire. It's just like a fire show. It's not even like fire department.
It's cool, though.
Well, yeah, when you said fire, I thought you meant fire department.
Well, it has fire in it. Leave me alone. All right. Anyway, back to... Converse Street, which was structure, and our co-op explosion.
Yeah, I was getting into that.
Oh, my
Yeah.
bad.
So the last one that we're going to show for you guys, talk about with you guys, was a longer one that we know is probably not going to be very common for most departments. But I think it would have helped us to have a game plan for it beforehand. Yes, for sure. And for those of you who do grass fires that are several days or whatever, this would come in handy too. So this is our kind of industrial / grain bin fire with our local co-op that actually lasted 48 hours for the first initial call, and then actually took out a bunch of days after that for several weeks. Now, granted, it wasn't always consistent or sequential after that.
Yeah, we'd go out there for, 3 or 4 hours here or a couple hours here or something like that.
Or 12 hours here and there. Like, it was so random after that. But it was 48 hours in the initial operations and then plus after that. So we have about 8 hours, 12 hours, and 48 hours for you guys. We're going to go through all of our different little nuggets here that we want to kind of touch on considerations for all those different hour markings and kind of what we think, from our opinion, what worked well, what didn't work well, and what we would have liked to see for those fires.
Yep. First thing you reminded me of saying that, hour markings.
Yes.
As an IC, if you're ever in command of one of these situations, if you have a dispatch that's willing to work with you, it's a good way to do it, but make marks of where you're at in the first, say, 15 minutes, and then where you're at in 30 minutes, and then where you're at in an hour, just so you can keep track of what resources you might need and how long that call is actually going to last you.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I got that from Peter Lamb. If you listen to his podcast, I think it's just...
The Firefighter Training Podcast.
Yeah, that's what it is.
By Pete Lamb.
Pete Lamb. He's up on the East Coast. Really good guy to listen to. He's got tons and tons and tons of good information. But if you're an IC, keep track of, okay, maybe not even the 15 minutes, but okay, 30 minutes into your fire, how are things looking, and if it's getting close to night, am I going to need lights? Am I going to need this? Or this is going to be an extended operation. So
have my guys had supper yet? Have they not? How many people eat at 5 o'clock and how many people eat at 9 p.m.? There's a difference between that. They're...
And you can't always accommodate for everyone.
Well, no, but you can start thinking, like, if it's 4 o'clock, most people haven't eaten supper yet.
Yeah, so just something to think about. If you got a good dispatcher, you can talk to them beforehand and say, hey, just let me know when 30 minutes is up on this fire, and that way you can reevaluate your situation and go, okay, we are going to need more resources here, either people, trucks, food, whatever you might need. So.
Yeah, and I think it's okay, especially something like that where it is, let's say, a one-department operation for a while, or even if it's more, to go ahead and if your dispatch is comfortable with that, with like notifying you in a half hour, an hour, what you ask them, to check back in with you so you don't have to keep track of that time, have them do it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of career departments out there that actually live by that. That dispatcher knows, okay, at 15 minutes, I need to let them know it's been 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good rule of thumb, and if you're IC, it helps out a lot knowing that you're going to need more resources there for different situations. Obviously, like I said, if night's coming, maybe you need to get some portable lights there or something like that to continue operations, or who knows, like I said, food, different shifts of workers, stuff like that. I mean, it's just all situational based, but it definitely gives you an idea of if you're going to need more resources. So I wanted to say that before I forgot, because you mentioned the hour mark or stuff like that. So
yeah, that's a good nugget there. So I think the first thing, unless you have something else you want to say before we get into it.
No, that's all that popped in my head right then.
All right.
So
the first thing we're going to get into this whole thing is food considerations. So first of all, we already said here, like we said, if it's at 4 o'clock and it's 4 o'clock, you guys haven't probably eaten since noon, so they're going to be needing some sort of sustenance in the first place anyways, even if they weren't working a fire, some point between 5 and 10. So now that they're working a fire, how much sooner are they going to need actual food in them to keep working?
Yep.
So you keep that in mind for then. Go ahead.
Just with the food, couldn't have planned that any better. The perfect situation was our structure fire, our Converse Fire, because I'm pretty sure that page went out at like 4 or 4:30 or something like that for this house fire that we worked about 12 hours on.
Yeah.
So thankfully, Chief knew that, hey, none of us had eaten, so.
Well, shoot, I actually don't think I got any food until about 10 or 11.
I don't think any of us really got food
okay.
until 10 or 11. I didn't think any of us thought we were going to be there that long, but. So that's kind of the perfect example actually right there. So I guess we'll just with the food.
Yeah.
Should we just go through the fire, or the different fires with the food considerations?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So in 8 hours with food, kind of what are your considerations with that, I guess, for that kind of smaller-ish long fire? Well, definitely you're going to want at least one meal in there, I'd say, if not two. And with people working fires, honestly, they're going to use a lot more energy than what you think. You're going to need to feed them more than what even normally they'd be fed because they are spending that extra energy working. They at that point, they are athletes. They need to be fed to be able to keep up.
Yeah. You can't always give them as much food as they like.
Yeah.
Food runs very short, very quick. But try to be accommodating for them, especially if, they haven't eaten for a while. That can lead to other kind of health issues, possibly on that same fire that you want to avoid. But
yeah,
mainly on that one, most guys can go 7 hours, especially if they're working on fire without eating, but it's not good.
It's not good for them at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we've been out at some other grass fires and stuff that have been 4 or 5 hours, and we don't eat, but that's all right. You get up into that 7-8 hours, you really want to start thinking about it, I think.
Exactly. So do we want to talk about maybe types of food that we like or that is better for us or not good for us on scene?
Yeah, we need to do that, but what are some good food resources first?
Food resources?
Like here, we have the auxiliary.
Yes. So we have our firefighters auxiliary, you guys, and so that is the spouses of our fire department, of our firefighter members, are on the auxiliary, and they are able to kind of work together, and they have their own budget and whatnot to be able to actually go make us food and bring it out to us on scene, all made and whatnot. So there's that resource to get in touch of. Some people go through their EMS side for that to be able to get that worked out. I know at least here in town, there's usually at least one, if not a couple places wanting to or willing to donate food for us. So when you're going through places like that, you want to make sure that they are going through someone probably constant to be able to donate food to you guys so that you're not getting duplicate donations. Not that we don't want duplicate donations, but we don't want food to go wasted either at that point.
Right. Well, and if you're constantly talking to the same person too, you have a consistent contact there that knows what's going on and can get you the right information. But yeah, auxiliary, people love to donate things, especially here for us recently. We've gotten a lot of donated food when we go out on these big fires. And honestly, I think that's part of the Facebook deal again, too,
We keep bringing it up every episode, but...
I hate bragging on you. Well, I don't hate bragging on you, that's a lie, but I hate boasting you up that much. I don't want you to get a big head, but I think a lot of it, just getting it out on Facebook, people are like, they're at a big fire, they're going to need stuff, And
yeah.
We get water and food constantly from people donating the day of the fire, And
yeah, and I will take bottled water all day long. I mean, that stuff is gold to us.
Yep.
The food, I am a little more hesitant about it just because food expires. And that's one thing that I'm trying to be, and it was really tough with, we're going to talk about one of the bigger fires in the next little bit here too. It was really tough because we had people wanting to donate food, and we had people donating a lot of food that was going to waste just because
everyone donated it at once.
Exactly, and it wasn't able to be spread out.
Right.
And I hate wasting stuff. I don't want to waste stuff. I want people to have their money going to something good, going to what they want to.
Yeah, you get 5 pizzas donated, and one of them still goes to waste. That's not a good deal either. So.
Yeah.
Other resource that I can think of off the top of my head is hopefully you got a good emergency manager.
Yeah, that works too.
A lot of times they have some good resources. If nothing else, they can get you a hold of some funding that they can use in that case that you do need that.
Yes, good point.
We have a very good one
for our county.
For our county.
He's amazing.
And he does a lot of stuff for us, and that's his job, but he's very good at it. And if we ever run short on something or need something on a scene, he's more than happy to reach out and use his resources to help us, and that is his job. So hopefully you have a good working relationship with him, and if nothing else, start building that relationship and talking to him, and he's got the resources, so he's got the government behind him, so maybe a little paperwork for him, but nonetheless,
I'll make him do the paperwork.
He's a good resource, so don't forget about him. He's there to help you.
Yeah.
those are some quick resources for you anyway, what I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, just the regular donations around town and things, if you have some other source to get them from. I know every department's not like us.
Yeah.
They probably have other resources out there. So.
Yeah, and when it comes down to it, you might have to end up using some of your own budget to feed your guys, but out of your donation money that you have, maybe saving up for some equipment or something, but it's definitely worth feeding those guys and keeping them healthy and going to keep the public safe and keep everything under control.
Yeah, and in the future, if you guys are able to do we did a fundraiser this summer called Fill the Truck, and we did it specifically for water and Gatorade, but we took cash donations. Those cash donations are able to be used for more water, Gatorade for us on fires, and for food if we need it. Mm-hmm. Luckily here we haven't had to use it for food or anything, but I think we have had to buy some more water with it a little bit. So.
Yeah. The other thing, your older guys on your department, if they are unable to be at a fire scene.
Yes, that's a good idea.
We have a grill here, but we also have a kitchen here at the station too. They might take a little bit of offense to it. I'm not quite sure, depending on their personality, I guess. But, maybe talk to those older guys and be like, hey, if we need some food or something, can you guys,
either grill some hamburgers or put some sandwiches together.
Yeah,
or
something, that's also a good resource too. So don't
make some
forget
sloppy
about
joes. Yeah.
Either your honoraries, if you have honoraries, guys that have been on and retired, or just your elder firemen,
Elder firemen, anyone who's maybe some sort of inactive for some reason, for injuries or something, stuff like that. Or, honestly, that's a good point. If you guys have older kids, like teenagers or even other kids that want to help spouses or those older firemen, send them to the station. Help them make food.
Yeah. When it comes to a long call, you can't beat the extra help.
Yeah.
So there's some quick resources for you that goes across all those fires for you. So, and what you wanted to talk about something?
I was wanting to talk about maybe the types of food to have.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
So for me personally, I hate the greasy food. I understand pizza's easy. I do. And sometimes on a quick call, like a grass or structure fire, that's easy and fast. I understand it. That's fine. Something longer, like co-op or something like that we did, I really don't want that greasy food. I really don't want Casey's pizza, very honestly. I would rather have a sandwich. I would rather have fruits and veggies on hand. Give me some carrots and celery. Give me some lunch meat and stuff. Give me some bread to fill up. That greasy stuff is going to sit so dark in your gut, it's going to make you feel like crap. It's going to have you move slower and sludgier just because of the type of food it is. So even, if you're getting burgers or something like that from, a local Dairy Queen or whatever, that stuff's not necessarily great for you either. Now, granted, it's food. It's good in a pinch, and I will not knock donations, don't get me wrong, but if I have to choose, I'm going to try to choose the honestly healthier, cleaner stuff for working like that. But that's kind of my guidelines for myself of what I like to take in and not take in when I'm on a call, I guess.
Yeah. I'm a little bit different because I like the warm food, the pizza and the burgers and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's so greasy.
I know it's greasy, but if you don't overload yourself, I don't have a problem with it. I'll eat the Casey's pizza or whatever. When we were out there at the co-op,
mm-hmm.
That didn't bother me. It was warm food. It was good. I liked it. I just couldn't eat too much of it because then I'd get those problems. But
yeah,
I don't know. I agree with you. Obviously the healthier option and probably the better nutritional wise for you is probably the sandwiches, salads, stuff like that. I guess it's kind of your department's preference. I guess I don't know. I would say stick to the sandwiches and stuff like that. It's cheaper.
It's cheaper.
There's more nutrition in it than what you're gonna find in pizza and.
I think maybe
like that,
if there's a way to somehow, and I haven't looked this up and probably should have done it before this podcast, but to look up healthier foods for athletes. I honestly, when we're on scene, when we're working a call, we should be considered athletes when we're doing that. So what do you feed athletes? If they're really cold, what kind of hot foods can you feed them? So if you guys can do any sort of looking up, and like I said, I should have done this. I didn't do it. But just start looking up food that athletes would eat while they are doing whatever they're doing, basically.
Yeah, while they're training.
Yeah.
Just because, yeah, like you said, we are athletes when we're out there working a fire. We're working harder than probably most of us do at our normal job, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's going to push our bodies. It's going to push our bodies, and our bodies are going to need more of the nutrition and the refilling and freshness of it.
Yeah.
So, I'm not against sandwiches. Sandwiches are good on a fire scene, too, because that's our auxiliary makes a lot of sandwiches.
Yeah.
And they're delicious, and they definitely get you through the day.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we had breakfast burritos one morning. That was awesome. That wasn't so greasy. They were homemade breakfast burritos.
Yeah, forgot about
that. That was one on the 48-hour plus call. We had breakfast burritos one of those mornings, and that was amazing. So yeah, it was just super simple: eggs, sausage, a little bit of cheese, not even a ton, wrapped in a tortilla. Awesome.
Yep, and there was a handful of us that were out there. I think we sent the first group of guys home probably around 11 o'clock that night, and there's a group of us that stayed overnight, and it was a cold night, and it sucked, and it was a miserable night, and to have those warm burritos, breakfast burritos there in the morning,
yeah,
that was nice. It was really good. So
other than that, did we talk about through the 48-hour call of like kind of what to talk about for food? I mean, obviously you need your normal food times, but if you're working straight overnight like that, you're going to need stuff in between supper and breakfast, I would think, very honestly. You're going to need like a fourth meal in there for people who are staying up overnight working.
In the case of the co-op fire, we really didn't, but we weren't
working.
We weren't working that hard. It was more of a weight game for that overnight anyway.
So if you were working, I say yes.
But yeah, if you were working, yeah, you definitely want another meal in there for sure. Because people are, especially if they only ate one or two slices like pizza, it's gonna wear out pretty quick.
Yeah.
So.
Coffee. Honestly, not a lot of pop. I wouldn't do pop on fire scenes very often, and I would put it in there very sprinkly, just because people are gonna gravitate towards the pop more than water, and they need to be drinking water. So yeah, Gatorade pop, or Gatorade's fine. Pop, a little bit. I understand the caffeine, just kind of like coffee, but make sure you guys have water there for sure.
Yeah, make sure you guys are staying hydrated.
Just because they're drinking pop does not mean they're staying hydrated.
Right, yep, exactly. All right, so, yeah, the grass fire, the 7-hour fire, you're probably looking something quick, easy, maybe some pizzas, maybe some sandwiches.
1 to 2 meals max.
Yeah, you're not looking at very much there. Your house fires, you're going to be working a little more intently. Or not intently,
intensely.
Intensely. There we go.
I'd say 2 to 3 meals.
Yeah, at least 2 meals. I'd probably say, depending on just
for those 12-hour calls.
For just depending on the timing of the call.
Yeah.
If it happens right after supper, obviously you're only probably looking at one call, or one meal. But again, probably the sandwiches would be your best bet there, depending on your outside environmental elements there. If it's hot, cold, pretty nice out, who knows. But yeah, you're still probably looking at sandwiches, working pretty intensely. I would still be okay with a pizza.
And that's fine. I don't have anything wrong with pizzas. I just know me personally, I am not a greasy type working kind of girl. I need that clean eating if I'm going to be performing my best. So
just make sure you guys are taken care of there on the big calls, the once in a lifetime or once in their career calls, the 48-hour calls.
Yeah.
You kind of, for lack of better words, I feel like you kind of have to cater a little more to what your guys are wanting.
Well, and even on those, you don't know they're going to be 48-hour calls when you start.
Yeah.
So they're really hard to pin down until after that 12-hour or 24-hour point that you're going to be out there that long. Yeah. You don't know that, and I understand that.
So, yeah, for, like, your first meal and stuff, your best bet might just be, like, sandwiches and chips. And just get them fed and kind of see how things are progressing, and if you've been out there for 12 hours, maybe get them a little more of a filling meal. I cannot talk tonight. But yeah, definitely think athletic-wise when it comes to food.
Yes.
You're going to be expelling those nutrients. Definitely want to replace them, replenish them.
Pop is not a hydrating thing.
Fluid.
Fluid, thank you.
So it does have a lot of sugars in it, which for some guys works out great. I know it's a big, like, he doesn't drink a lot of pop, but when he sweats and stuff like that, he needs the sodium and salt and stuff.
That's fine. That's fine to have some pop. Just don't load up on pop.
Yeah, make sure you're keeping track of your guys and don't bring a whole bunch of pop out. Bring more water than pop for sure. So that's kind of the food for those 3 calls that we picked out. Next one on the list.
Sleeping considerations.
So this one isn't so big until it comes up to that big 48-hour fire.
Yeah. I think on the 7 hours, it really doesn't matter that much. Most people can stay up just fine with the 7 to 8 hour call. Some people, if it's happening in the middle of the night, might need to take an hour nap or whatever, and they'll be fine. The 12 hour, even then, some people by the end of it might need to take a nap or in the middle of it if they need to. It's going to be a case-by-case basis at that point, but most people will be fine. This really comes up with that 48 hours.
So, like you were saying, the grass fire, everyone would be fine. The structure fire that we had was 12 hours long.
We were all dead.
At the end of the night, everyone was dead. And I don't remember if it was on the other podcast or not, but at the end of the night, mop-up is happening, and it's even at the end of mop-up. We had mutual aid there, and they were kind of doing the mop-up for us. I turned around, and on the opposite side of the street, all the neighbors had got out lawn chairs, and I had 6 officers sitting in the lawn across the street, all asleep in their chairs.
And a fire marshal, too.
And a fire marshal.
They're all just dead asleep.
And we were all completely exhausted. And so it's probably not a huge push on the 12-hour fires, but definitely something to put in the back of your mind that your guys are going to be tired.
Oh, yeah.
And when it comes down to the end of the day, that's where the mutual aid comes in. We'll get to that at the end here. But probably not a huge consideration in the 12-hour fires, but if it's a structure fire like that where your guys are really working hard, even if you fed them, if you see them sitting down and laying down, it's time to think about some reinforcements.
Yes.
So, and then on to the 48-hour call.
Yeah, the 48-hour call. That was just a nightmare with sleeping considerations. Because, like we said in the last point, you're not going to know until it's like 12 hours or 24 hours in that it's going to be a 48-hour call. Like, you have no idea. So when do you start sending people home? How do you know that? First of all, that's all tactic-wise. We're not going to get into that part to know that. But when it starts getting to that point, once you're hitting, I think probably, honestly, that 12-hour mark, you need to start thinking, okay, are we even close? Are we going to go on for a long time? If you're not even close, you're going to have to send, I'm going to say, about half your people home to get either home or in trucks to get some sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this will honestly probably combine with our next point now that I think about it, that we're talking about it.
Yeah, probably. The biggest thing I found on our co-op fire was everyone was too stubborn.
Yes.
Like, everybody wanted to be out there. This is a once-in-a-career fire. Unfortunately,
they're all manly men.
It was one of those fires where we really didn't know what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, our grain elevator out here had an explosion.
But it was a weird explosion. It wasn't a classic explosion.
It wasn't a normal elevator explosion. And basically, I don't remember when the call went out for sure. It was like 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon.
Something like that on Halloween.
Yeah, on Halloween. And we had guys out there from 4 o'clock. And we were out of town. We come back in. I went out there.
Around midnight.
And it was basically, we're waiting around to see what's going to happen. And we had guys that had been up all day and everything like that. And
so, some of these guys had been up since 5 or 6 a.m. that day.
Yeah. And basically what was going on is our firemen themselves didn't want to either admit they were tired or they didn't want to leave because
they didn't want to miss anything.
They didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
And it turned into such a long operation that the lack of sleep was getting in the way of our guys' judgment and abilities to do things.
Yeah.
And our chief basically just needed to say, you guys need to go home.
Yeah, but he was with everybody else. He wanted to be there. He thought that it was his duty, and I understand that. I do.
I understand the chief's side, but the chief need to
tell people,
like specifically say, hey, you 5 people need to go home, get some sleep, come back in the morning.
Yep, and I think it's something after the fact he realizes that.
Oh yeah, and it was this. The co-op fire was a huge learning experience for our department. Like there's you couldn't have trained for it. You couldn't have. It
was a huge learning experience for the fire marshals.
Oh yeah, it was a crazy deal. So yeah, sleeping considerations. If you get up into 12 hours and whatever's happening either isn't getting better or maybe you have it contained, but it's going to take you another 4 or 5 hours to actually get this thing put out.
Yeah.
It's time to call in the reinforcements and send some of your guys home.
Yeah. Or even if it's not necessarily 12 hours into the call, if it's 12 hours of people being awake, start thinking about that. Because the more people get tired, the lower their ability to do things is going to be. They're going to be making more mistakes just because they're tired. Even if their adrenaline is going and whatnot, even if they're amazing people and they work really good, really well, the more they get tired, they're going to be just wore out. Yeah, so if they've been up since 5 or 6...
it's going to go down too.
Yeah, because I know a lot of our guys get up at 5 or 6 in the morning for work or for other things. Some of them are farmers and whatnot, and so they have been up so long, let's say by even midnight that night. My goodness. Yeah. Their judgment is going down like crazy by that point. So that's something you have to consider too, is just how long have they been up, not even how long the scene's been running.
Yeah, exactly. I guess as far as sleeping goes, send them home. Either get a personal vehicle out there to start transporting people home, or if you got a truck out there, in our case we had our grass rigs out there just to kind of run people around and stuff. Mm-hmm. I know we sent a couple guys home on the tanker, at least back into town on the tanker, so they could get a ride back to the house.
Yeah.
Or if you can't get them back home, put them in the truck.
Find them a good spot in the truck.
Yeah.
Try to make it comfortable.
Yep. Do what you can.
Don't bother them at all unless you absolutely have to. And like when they're home, if these guys have radios, have them turn them off. Honestly, for us too, when we send people home, I found it really good to like, if we would have had it specified time of like, this is a specific time that you're coming back, makes it a lot easier on the guys rather than, I wonder what I'm missing, I hope things don't happen, things like that. If they have a specific time of, this is when you're supposed to report back to us, even if the call's over by then, it just makes it easier on everybody, I think.
Yeah. So
that way they have that entire time to decompress. It's not their worry anymore. You will find help if you need it somewhere else. Yeah, they are done until that time.
Yeah, because a lot of our guys, I went home and I slept for like an hour or 2 hours.
And they came back.
Couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And so they come back. Well, it's like, no, I don't want you here until 8 o'clock. Whether you're sleeping or not, I don't want you here until 8 o'clock.
Yeah, if you're sleeping or not, that's your own problem. Try to sleep. You're not coming back till this time.
Yep.
And then you're expected to work from this time to this time. Mm-hmm. In case it keeps going.
Yeah.
So that that really bleeds into our next one of making shifts out of your workers. If it turns into one of those long calls. And you can do it with the short ones of like 12 hours, the short, long ones of like 12 hours. But this really works with the really long ones too.
Yeah. Guide Rock, your grass fire, which we called about 7 hours, it was about 5 hours into it is when we came down to replace you guys.
Yeah.
And that was something that we learned from the co-op fire, which is previous, that, hey, these guys have been working this long, they're going to need refresh. Some of them might still be able to keep going, but we need to send some guys down there, get some people switched out, get some fresh bodies in there.
And we did have several people who needed to get switched out for whether it be health reasons or whether it be just plain tired or if they needed other things they had to go do or whatnot.
Yeah, because we sent 10 people down there, and I know of 4 people off the top of my head that went home.
Yeah.
There might have been more than that, but I know there's at least 4 people that went home because either they needed to get home and get to bed because they had to work in the morning, or they're just plain exhausted, or their health issues were starting to come up.
Yeah.
So, even on the shorter fires, the grass fires, don't be afraid to replace your guys and say, hey, you guys good, or you guys need to go home.
Yeah.
You know, and try to reinforce in you guys. It's not a bad thing to go home.
Yeah, it's okay to go home.
Yeah.
That's why mutual aid is there.
We can call you back out if we need you, but if things are going downhill for you, let's get you home, get you some sleep, get you some food, whatever you need.
I feel like that just puts safety as number one at that point.
Exactly.
It's your own personal safety of why you need to go home for whatever reason.
Yep. Our 12-hour structure fire, making shift work. That one, I don't know if we necessarily had shift work.
We didn't have shift work for that one. We kind of had crews.
Didn't say we had crews, so it was kind of like shift work.
Yeah.
Basically, we
never really rested, but at the same time, we kind of did.
Yeah. Basically, we had how I remember it anyway, is we had basically groups of 4 people that were doing interior. Mm-hmm. And 2 people would go inside, 2 people would be waiting outside as backup. And when the 2 people inside got done, they'd come out, the 2 people outside the door would go in, and then the 2 that just came out would basically take everything off, go rest, get their air packs refilled, and basically just cycle through as many people as we could get, you know.
It was supposed to work that way. So. Well, we're going to say it like that. It was supposed to work that way. It pretty much did with some flaws, which we won't get into this time. But it pretty much worked like that, especially once we got mutual aid there. We were able to work a lot easier with that kind of flow. Yeah. Before mutual aid got there, there was a lot of flaws to it. But
we probably worked 4 hours without mutual aid there.
Yeah.
And basically, our plan is just whenever those guys came off, we probably went through a couple bottles on the first go at it.
Yeah.
But after that, it was like every time you got done with a bottle, you pretty much sat down and relaxed as much as you could until you and your partner were ready to be the backup team again.
Yeah.
And basically, we just tried to keep people as rested as possible.
Yeah.
That's probably about the best way. We really didn't have shift work, but we tried to keep people as rested as possible. Just because after about an hour trying to fight this, we realized it wasn't going to be an easy one.
Yeah. And separate podcast to come later.
Yeah. We'll talk about that fire a little bit later. And then, we got mutual aid in there. After about 4 hours, we called our mutual aid in because our guys were getting exhausted. And then it came down, I think, shift work. Yeah. It was like, okay, you guys take a break. We'll let mutual aid take over for a little while. Let's get rested up. And then when we're all rested up and ready to go, then we'll hit it again and let them rest.
Yeah. So, those kind of go together, the sleeping considerations and making shifts of workers. So we've hit those 3 points.
We talked about the co-op.
Huh?
We already talked about the co-op on that
Basically, yeah. I mean, it just kind of blended together with those 2.
Yeah. So, basically, co-op, starting to realize that guys have been up for way too long.
Way too long.
And a few of us finally convinced the chief that, hey, we got guys standing around here that should be at home sleeping, and got them to realize, yeah, we need to send these guys home because we're going to be here for a while.
Well, I know at one point I was there, and I hadn't been there as long as most people had. But I was tired anyways from other stuff that I've been doing with personal life, and everybody else was being stubborn, very honestly, and they weren't sleeping. They weren't doing anything, like they're just being their normal selves. So I decided, you know what, I'm not going to be worth nothing. I'm going to go home and get sleep because I'm willing to go home at this point. And so I went home and got some sleep, expecting to go out later that night and be up all night just in case.
Yeah, we went home right about noon that next day, and we went through the shower, jumped in bed. I think we got up about 4 o'clock, so we got a few hours to sleep.
Yeah.
And came back to the station, and thankfully they were just kind of finishing things up, so we just kind of hung around the station and helped clean things up at that point.
Yeah, but we were expecting to be out all night just in case.
Yeah, I mean, the way the call was going, we expected to be out there, and so we went home, got some sleep, and came back and expected to be out till at least midnight that night.
Yeah,
so.
Just because, like I said, other people weren't sleeping, and we knew they'd need some fresh guys eventually, so we were taking the proactive route and trying to do that.
Yep, so as a chief, don't be afraid to make your guys go home, especially if you got guys standing around. Mm-hmm. If you're in a fire where you're like, well, we really don't know what's going to happen right now, we're just kind of waiting and seeing, those guys that are standing around, if they're not doing anything, send them home, get some sleep, because you might need them in a few hours.
Yeah, and then when we came back, they were just coming back, and we were able to help them clean up. And we were fresh, helping them clean up, where they could take more relaxed time. They could take off their gear. They could clean up.
Because the guys that were coming in were
tired.
They were beat.
So we were able to take a lot of the work coming off of them while they came in.
Yep, exactly.
So it's okay to send people home and even have them come back for 5 minutes, but like half an hour to help clean up.
Mm-hmm.
For that.
Absolutely.
So, the next point on here is going to be dealing with missing your day job. And this is going to be a little bit different for the different time periods we have on here. The first two are going to be about similar, between the 7 to 12 hours. The 48-hour plus is going to be the different one.
Yeah.
So, for me personally, dealing with my day job, most of the time, I don't have to worry about it since I work for myself. Now, sometimes I can't leave because of everything, because of what I do and who I work for, or like if I'm working for a client, if I'm working for a client or something.
Okay.
But otherwise, I can pretty much do whatever I need to, even when it comes to the days on end, unless I'm trying to get projects done. So your perspective with stuff, how do you deal with missing your day job on both the 8 to 12 hours and the 48 hours plus kind of calls?
For me, it's all relationship with my employers.
Okay.
The 48-hour call, that was a hard one, but the 7 to 12-hour call, for me personally, it's the difference between what it is. Like the grass fire, I wasn't there for that one. In my employer's eyes, it's not as important. It's grass fire, no one's lives are in danger.
We're only sending 2 trucks to it.
Yeah, we're only sending so many people to it, I did show up to actually go to it, but the trucks had already left, so I went back to work.
Okay.
So they did actually let me off there, but also when I do go to fires, it's also kind of known that I try to make up that time in some way for them, as much as I can anyway. The Converse Fire, that happened on a day off, but usually a structure fire where lives are definitely could be at stake, or just someone losing their house. My bosses are pretty empathetic with that.
Yeah.
So they typically let me off for that. And again, it's just one of those deals that's kind of known that I will try to make up as much time as I can for them, and it's kind of a respect on both sides. So they let me do it as long as I respect them and try to make up that time. Their co-op call, that happened on a Saturday. So Saturday and Sunday were all that call. And then after the fact, when we kept going back, it was just, I think it was more or less, okay, do we have enough guys that are willing to do this, or enough guys that can get off to go do it where I don't have to, or what exactly are they doing? Sometimes they're just going out there to cool down hot spots. Well, okay, that can wait, or we have 4 guys that can go out there and do that can get off work a little easier than I can, so they're going to be the ones to take care of it,
Yeah.
But if it came down to it and we didn't have the people, my bosses are willing again, okay, go do what you got to do, as long as you're not on a deadline with a project. Do what you got to do, try to make up the time.
I think we're something like that, but the long one. I think the short ones are probably going to be, everyone's either going to be able to be able to go or not go kind of thing. It's going to just be a either or, depending on what your job is and who you work for. Like what Chris said, if it's a grass fire even here in town, even if it's not a out-of-town one, he might not be able to go just because of other things. If it's a small house fire, you may not be going. It just really depends on what it is. With the long ones, I think for everyone involved, me personally, I would have liked to see maybe some sort of a roster list of who was available to go every day for the week. And granted, we didn't know exactly what we were getting into. This was the first big grain fire we've had around here. We've had others that we mutual aided on, but nothing here. And it was just so different, I think, for all of us to have to deal with. And the fact we did not realize it was going to take, 2 to 3 to 4 even weeks to get this whole call finished up with. It was ridiculous. The most of the call happened within the first week, but it did linger on quite a bit past that for different days at a time, trying to just release all the grain from different bins and stuff. But, you know, I would have liked to see some sort of either a list of who could go on what days, just kind of have a preemptive, especially with the grain, this is what we have, this is who can go. And then kind of honestly, who has a problem with missing work and who doesn't. You know, because some of those people were missing work that maybe after one more time they would have had a big slap on the wrist or something from it or whatnot. You know, and it's not fair to them at the same time either.
Well, I think what it comes down to is, personally, are you willing to miss those days from work?
Mm-hmm.
I try to miss as few as I can, especially when I don't have a vacation. But also, it comes down to that relationship that you have at work.
Yeah.
You have a good relationship with your bosses. Are they understanding of what's going on, or are they understanding of you being on the volunteer department and what that entails? Or are they the no, when you're at work, you're at work?
Yeah.
You know, and it's not uncommon for guys not to be able to leave during the day.
Yeah, it's super common. That is one big thing we have problems with here on our department is the response time during work hours, just because people can't leave work.
Yeah. So I think the main point there is it comes down to relationship and having those conversations before these big events happen.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing what they expect out of you and knowing what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
This is the last thing I want to do is get people in trouble for leaving their job to go to a fire.
Yeah.
Yes, the fires are important. They need to be contained, but depending on what the fire is it worth you losing your job for?
Exactly. We have mutual aid. We have other ways or other things or whatnot to deal with it in case it happens.
Which leads us into the last point. We have mutual aid. If your department does not have mutual aid, you need to get some mutual aid. Because our departments, especially being volunteer, and I know a lot of the ones around here, don't have the capabilities to deal with everything. And with the lack of manpower in the volunteer service, it's not uncommon to not have enough people to do things.
Yeah.
And we're a bigger department. We're a very fortunate department. I think last I heard we had 30 people on the roster. I think I heard that Wednesday night.
I think 33.
I thought I heard 30
Wednesday night. Know.
But anyway, we're one of the more fortunate departments to have 30 people on the roster, and I know there's smaller departments out there that have even less. So
yeah.
Mutual aid is a good thing for every department out there.
Yes, and we are actually part of 2 mutual aid districts.
Yep. Actually, no. Career department, they mutual aid with the rural district out there.
Yes, they do.
So even if our career department up here, if they have a house fire,
they will call in the volunteers to the rural department
if they need it. They have a mutual aid agreement with their rural department that they will call in the volunteers if they need it.
Yeah.
And so mutual aiding is not to downplay anyone's capabilities, it's to help everyone in that group.
Honestly, I think it's if people are thinking big city here or big department, they are thinking of just another department and being able to do a whatever alarm with like having other stations in that same district in that same city go to their fires.
Think of it as your department is first alarm and your mutual aid is the second alarm.
Yes. So when people say 3 alarm fires, for us out here in mutual aid district, it's decently common for those type of 3 alarm fires here, you know. It's nothing to be ashamed of or anything.
No, because we have a department just east of us that if they have a structure fire, I don't know if it's still this way. It used to be automatic alarm for us if they have a structure fire.
I don't think it is anymore just because they tend to have smaller ones now. But it used to be automatic mutual aid.
Has changed so much that I think things just got lost. But they are not, honestly, they're not trained for structure fire. Mm-hmm. And so,
they are definitely a grass fire running department.
Yeah, and that's what they have. I mean, it's pretty rare that they have a structure fire over there, but mutual aid agreements are for the betterment of everyone.
Yeah.
And don't be ashamed to say, hey, our department doesn't know how to do structure fire, so if we have one, we're going to do what we can, and we're going to call in mutual aid.
Yeah.
And hopefully the mutual aid that does structure fire is fairly close to you, but I mean, it's definitely for the benefit for you, and you spread the cost out of equipment that you use, maybe you have one tanker, but you really could use about 3 of them, You don't have to buy 3 tankers. Your mutual aid will cover you.
Yeah.
You buy one tanker and you have 5 of them at your availability.
So with this use of mutual aid, how much do you use your mutual aid for these types of fires? For the 7-hour fire, 12-hour fire, and 48-hour fire?
Well, we talked about the fire in the last podcast. How many departments were there?
21.
21 departments.
And that was special, granted, because of the high winds and things and how fast it was moving. So, right then, honestly, they should have been calling them out sooner, even honestly on their way, because of the high winds. And I know that's something that our chief here has talked about before. Like, if he's going to something with that high of winds, he's already calling out other departments, because he knows he's going to need the help even before he gets there.
Yep.
Just in case. If nothing else, you can turn them around. Go ahead and get them out on the way out there. So for a 7 or 8 hour fire, that's no-brainer. For the structure fire on Converse, for that 12 hours, and granted, it's a different scenario. You don't have those high winds. It's a structure fire. And it ended up lasting 12 hours till we got it basically done.
Yeah.
So how do you go about figuring that out? First of all, for our specific scenario here in town.
So our structure fire, we're pretty efficient at structure fires.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of guys that are very into that side of the fire department, and we honestly tend to be very efficient at them and typically handle them on our own.
Those are our high risk, low frequency, and we train on them like crazy, you guys.
Yes. And I think what it came down to is the situation was we had a hidden fire due to some shady construction, stuff like that.
There were 2 roofs built. How do you want to explain it? There was the original roof, and then on top of that, they decided to build another roof instead of I don't know how you want to say it.
Yeah, it was basically a roof built on top of another roof.
Yeah.
And it had a void space in it. But the construction was old enough that nobody really knew that.
Exactly.
And we couldn't figure out. We were getting through the ceiling and hitting the roof, but we couldn't figure out that there was a void space in between the roof we were hitting and the actual outside roof.
Yes.
Basically what it came down to is our chief at the time, we had gone through so much manpower trying to find this thing that he realized, hey, our guys are getting wore out.
And this was about 4 hours in.
Yeah, they need replaced. Thankfully, at that point in time, we had pretty much, I think we figured it out by that point and actually had a grip and hold on it. But even though we had it under control, we still called in the mutual aid because our guys were whooped.
Yeah, we were tired. We were working 4 straight hours of how many guys could we even have go inside at that point? Maybe 8?
And it was like a 90.
Maybe?
It was in the 90s
yes,
that day.
It was super hot. We didn't have that many people who could go inside. Some of our top people who could go inside, honestly, were chief and assistant chief and stuff at the time. Well, assistant chief and other captains and things like that,
Had a lot of officers inside.
Yeah, a lot of officers inside at that point. Like, we had people spread thin of what they could do. And we were working. We were doing what we could do. I mean...
Well, I don't know how many bottles I went through, but I know I went through probably 5 of them. And I can make a bottle last a long time, but that was a lot of freaking work.
Yeah.
So maybe mutual aid just comes down to your guys have the energy, have the ability to keep moving.
Yeah, and at that point, we had gotten it knocked down enough. The mutual aid we had called in didn't need to do any necessarily hard work inside. And not saying anything bad about our mutual aid departments, but they are not structure fire heavy.
Yeah.
Like Chris said before, they are more grass fires around here. And so they were able to still put on packs and go inside and not necessarily hit the fire because it was knocked down enough already to keep it under control, very honestly.
Basically, we could give them some guidance saying, okay, we have it knocked down. You guys need to pull the ceiling and make sure we got it completely out.
Yes.
You know, this is what's going on. This is what we need done. We're going to leave you guys to it. Let us know if you need anything.
Yes.
We're not trying to be cocky in this. We're just...
No, we're a volunteer department, and we knew when we were spent for our resources, and
just don't be ashamed to call that mutual aid.
Well, I was going to say not for them to get mad at us for sending people up there who didn't know what they were doing.
Oh. Well,
basically.
they have a basic structure understanding.
I didn't want them to think that.
Yeah. Our departments, they may not be structural firefighters.
Yeah.
Per se, but they have a basic understanding of how to fight them. They just don't have the training behind it to really make them good and efficient at it.
Yes. So I don't want you guys to think that we're just sending people up there who don't know what they're doing. That's not what we're doing.
No, we're just... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, they still know what they're doing. They can still wear packs and all that fun stuff. It's just... They're not as efficient and as well trained on it as our department is.
Yeah.
So... But, yeah, mutual aid... How much you use it, that all depends on your department and your resources. Don't be afraid to call that mutual aid, even if you have to turn them around, because honestly, if you're a smaller department that's got a lot of older guys on it, how long can those older guys work?
Yeah. So we didn't touch on mutual aid with the co-op fire type 48-hour plus.
Oh, jeez. Mutual aid. So initially...
Okay, that type of fire, we needed a lot of water dumped. And yes, we get it. All these fires are different, but we're trying to give you guys kind of a guideline of what to think about. So
on the initial 48 hours, we did have mutual aid. But
not very much.
We didn't call mutual aid
until the next day. Until Sunday.
I think came and helped us shuttle some water.
On Saturday?
I think so.
Okay.
It was either real late that night / early the next morning, though, I think.
It was early the next morning. It was about 5 or 6 in the morning.
Because we had 2 stations set up. Because we were in the morning, or after midnight, we moved over to the west side of the building, too. We had sent guys home already at about 11 o'clock. And we did call out a mutual aid department for a second tanker. As we ran our tanker, and one of our engines that can tank water. We had them running in a drop tank, and we needed a third one because we wanted to be on the other side of the co-op as well. Mm-hmm. So basically, we called out mutual aid for another tanker. Again, it's a resource issue. We didn't have another tanker, so we needed one. We called mutual aid for it.
Yeah.
That fire specifically, we called mutual aid a lot for water.
Yes, but from what I remember, we didn't call the same departments every time, though. We called different departments.
We tried to spread it out for the work reason.
Yeah. So one day, Saturday night, Sunday morning, we called some departments. Sunday afternoon, we called different departments. Monday was another big day of shuttling a lot of water. So we called, again, different departments, if we could, Monday versus what we did on the weekend.
Yeah.
And then after that, I didn't think we used too much from mutual aid, but at the same time, like, we tried to spread it out to different places.
We just kind of used them off and on as we needed them. And yeah, we tried to spread it out just so people weren't missing work every day. Different departments didn't, they weren't leaving their department open for so long, We just tried to spread out the load among our whole region instead of just our single closest department.
Yeah.
So, and that one was just, that co-op fires for a whole nother podcast. It was ridiculous. All said and done, we ended up putting 1.5 million gallons of water on it. So
yeah, it was a lot.
It was.
Can't remember how many man hours, but it was a ton.
Oh, geez, so much.
Someday, when that information becomes 100% public for everything, we're gonna go through that with you guys. Like, I'm waiting for the day that everything becomes public information from the fire marshals, because I want to go over that fire so bad.
Oh, yeah. Sure. It was a good one. It was a great learning experience for our whole department. I think even our surrounding departments. So
yeah. It sounds like you're getting tired, Chris.
Yeah, my voice is getting a little raspy.
I think we've had a late night here, you guys.
It's only 12:35. We're doing good.
Oh, no, they know what time we actually record these.
That's all right.
I think we're going to call it here. What do you think?
I think that's probably a good idea. I think we gave you guys some nuggets, some things to think about.
Yeah. Some things to think about, long calls, a few different hours there for you guys to kind of think about, so. Yeah. At this point, I think we're too tired to even think of a sign off.
All right. Well, you guys have a good night. Have a good day.
Until next time.
Catch you next time. Yep. Bye. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it.
Be sure to leave us a rating and review wherever you're listening to us.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Couplings Fire Podcast.
See you next time.